Well, we have a little bit more with John as things evolved. We started talking about a few other things, and I got plugged into power to not run into my battery problems. So we got to play a few more tunes and talk a little bit more, and you had something, we're going to get a little bit better sound now too.
Oh yeah, I pulled the, I forgot.
Yeah, I forgot too, you know. Yeah. But you were playing amplified earlier was the thing, and that's a good way to get much better sound.
Oh yeah, mainly because it's a cheap one.
Right.
Yeah, quality sound usually means I don't need that. You know,
Yeah. So if we had a good miking system here, like we don't, we're living on mics on the camera and stuff.
Right.
But you want to talk about another song? About your website a little bit. So you are reachable on a website. We'll talk about that later. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, but I got to meet a hero.
Oh.
Early on, I used to be into Steve Vai, and I used to play electric guitar a long time ago. But I heard Michael Hedges, heard him, and learned a little bit of aerial boundaries, way back. And then was reading an article about who his favorite guitar player was. It's a guy named Pierre Ben Suzanne. You ever heard of him?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
God, I weep when I hear a few different pieces. He played at Alberta Street Theater, right down the street in Alberta in Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
Right before I came over here to the islands, and so it was like the biggest gift was to get tickets to the show, and I actually ran into him in the lobby, and took my guitar and I could get him to carve his name on it, like on the back, and so. I got to meet him. His wife was there too. And anyways,
Pierre, you got Pierre on here.
Pierre, carved his name in the front.
Wow.
With a Phillips screwdriver. That's all I had in my pocket at the time.
And it looks like it's greened a little bit over the years.
Yeah, it's just Yeah. Oh, and actually, this was just last summer.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I spill things on my guitar sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway, that is sweet.
Yeah, got to meet him. And when you first started playing a tune earlier, that's what was the last tune you played?
I played sleight of hand, by the way, in case some of the people at the site know it. But.
Awesome too. But yeah, it reminded me a bit of Pierre Ben Suzanne. It almost made me. You're in standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost sounded like you were in Dad Gap with some of your chords and chording you were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, some unusual harmonies and things every once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah. I know the feeling of meeting heroes is really neat. I've been lucky to have a lot of thrills now meeting people that I really admired, and it all started from the first one was John Renbourn. Now Renbourn was by far the biggest influence on me growing up, and it was about 15 years ago now. It was 1998, I think. I had a chance to meet him and actually get to know him, and he did workshops at my music store. I teach for a living. I give private lessons, and still do some, but mostly online lessons now. But anyway, so met John because I hired him to come do a workshop for my students.
Wow. And
so he was there for 2 nights, and I spent by the time he left, we had played a little bit together, and I played some duets that he doesn't play too often. So this is a piece of his called Snap a Little Owl. So when we sat down and started playing that, our relationship changed immediately. It's like all of a sudden he treated me as a peer and not like a
promoter.
And not a student or a fan or anything else. It's like we just bonded when we played a few tunes. And he even said one thing. He says, "I never play those duets because nobody I know can play them." I said, "Oh, I can play them." And he goes, "Yeah, you can." So it was great. And that sort of opened the door. And that's eventually how I met Keola, and have done some concerts with Keola and a few other people kind of along those lines. But it is just so neat to get to know, or just to meet these people that you think you'll never run into or have a chance to.
Yeah, I had a close call. Another hero of mine is Alex DeGrassi. When I had my injury, I was off for a year, and I went to the local library and checked a CD out, which sorry I never brought it back.
Okay.
It was a Wyndham Hill Collective. And it had Alex DeGrassi doing Turning Back live. Mm-hmm. First time I'd ever heard of him, whatever, and I listened to it probably 1,000 times. Just wow, was blown away. Years later, I got into doing music in Portland. From street performing to booking to house sound, everything. I started booking this acoustic club called Burlingame Acoustic Group, downtown First and Ash.
Okay.
And talked the owner out of guarantee money, and had the people that were doing my website contact his people. So Alex DeGrassi ended up playing there, but I ended up having to. I got I quit, basically. Got into it with the owner because he started noodling with the bookings and canceling bookings and stuff, and so I got mad and I left. 3 days before Alex DeGrassi showed up and played the venue that I booked him at.
Well, anybody watching this knows what I'm about to tell you, because we are having our first, we're having a camp, a music camp.
Didn't know about it.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But only if you were like an internet junkie would you know about it, or a Totally Guitars junkie. You'd have to know. So, folks, by the way, he knew nothing about me or Totally Guitars when we walked in. I walked in 2 hours ago. But anyway, so we are putting on this camp, and people are coming from around the world. We got some people coming from Europe, and students that are coming to spend a weekend with me and 3 guests. And the guests, one of them includes Alex DeGrassi.
You're kidding me!
No.
No way!
So if you want to come to California,
That's where it's at?
in September, you could come to Alex's workshop that he's doing for us.
And actually get to meet Alex DeGrassi. Wow. Yeah. Okay, bro. I don't have much choice. I gotta figure this out.
Okay. We'll see what we can do. And I mentioned a few of my heroes. Another one of them is actually going to be there as well. And then another friend of ours who's done some work stuff for us before is Muriel Anderson.
No way! Yeah!
So Muriel will be there too. And after I met Renborn and did a concert with him, the promoter of the same thing said, "Hey, I want you to come back next year, but get somebody else." I said, "What do you mean get somebody else?" He says, "Well, I'd just rather, this is a place, a big venue close to me, and where I live in Northern California." And he said, "Well, yeah, the Renborn thing went great, and next year let's have you back and get somebody else." I said, "I don't know anybody else, Well, as it turns out, I now do, because the next year I booked Al Stewart to do it, who is a singer-songwriter. I don't know if you're familiar with Al, You're the Cat, and that kind of stuff.
That was one of the first tunes my older brothers taught me.
Wow. Okay, so Al is going to be at our workshop as well.
I used to play that too. This is from a boat,
Country where they take their time. You go strolling through the crowd like Peter Lorre contemplating the crime. She comes out of the sun in a silk dress, running like a watercolor. Don't bother asking for explanations. She'll tell you that she can. Yes.
That's off the hook. But I have 2 older brothers that play. One still plays for a living I grew up in a little logging mining town on the Canadian border.
Okay.
Town of 600 people. The only other 2 people in the whole county that played with it, my 2 older brothers.
Okay.
The family I was adopted into.
Okay.
And anyhow, my brother Bruce lives in Northern California, and he does mine rescue there.
Wow.
And he taught me that tune when I was 16, amongst a few others that got me started, just teaching me cover songs with that. Yeah. You're the Cat. I got to go to this thing, man. And bring my older brother Bruce too.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
We will stay in touch and see if we can make sure that can happen.
Wow. How about Alex DeGrassi?
Yeah. So this just turned into a big ad for for what is known as the International Music Camp. So we have a website that's called internationalmusiccamp.com, and the featured performer or featured entertainers are going to be those 3. They're not really entertaining; we're putting on workshops. That's the main. And Al has never done this. I talked to him. I kind of had to twist his arm to do this, but when I first proposed this to him, he said, "Well, you don't need me. You need people like Lawrence Juber." And I'd already talked to Lawrence about it. It just didn't work out. But we got Muriel and Alex kind of already on board. And I told Al, I said, we've got the pyrotechnic guitar players. We've got Alex and Muriel, and I'll be there. And I said, I want a songwriter. There are way more people interested in songwriting than in pyrotechnic guitar playing. And I think, frankly, I didn't tell him this, but I've told people at Totally Guitars this. I think he's one of the greatest songwriters that's ever lived.
Awesome.
Just because of how clever and brilliant his things are, and his song, and the chord progressions are fabulous. They're not just simple country and western type things and stuff. Anyway, so that's what's going on with us in September in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Wow. I'm a bit starstruck. To tell you the truth, man, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. You know what's, I just gotta say, as far as Alex Degrassi goes, the guy's, I think it's unusual at times when people have amazing moments that they get better and better. And like folk songs, you think that did you get folk songs?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So, and Alex learned to read music later in life, but he wasn't a school musician. When he did turning band, he didn't
know what he was doing, huh?
I don't know what I'm doing, bro. I've never had a lesson before. So, honestly, I've been thinking more and more the last year or so that it would help me communicate with other musicians if I spoke the language, which I don't. I can, I haven't played the standard tuning really much in 10 or 12 years.
Right. Yeah.
But
so one of the books I've pushed on our site is Alex wrote a great book on finger picking, called Fingerstyle Guitar or something like that. I can't remember the name of it right now. But I've kind of recommended that everybody at the site gets this book because I was thinking about writing one, and after I got Alex's, I decided I don't need to. He's done it. It's perfect. It's
really,
it is great. And it's interesting that you bring up that he learned how to read later because coincidentally, this week I've just started a series of lessons that have gone up at Tilda Guitars on how to read because people are afraid of reading music because they think it's like learning a new language and it's difficult and I'm too stupid. I'll never be able to do this, And it can be easy.
I felt like personally that it could potentially screw me up because where I'm composing and doing my thing from is a completely out there kind of thing. And so I was afraid that if I was eating from the same trough that everybody else was, that I'd end up sounding like everybody else, which isn't a big, it's about how it makes you feel. That's the important thing. But I get off on trying to go places that or do things that I've never heard before. Makes me excited.
Yeah.
About composition.
Yeah.
But,
I think that's, I've always kind of I was lucky enough to be, when I started young, I was 8 or 9 years old and learned how to read right from the beginning because I had a music teacher and he said, this is here, take this Mel Bay book and you're going to learn how to read, And so luckily, starting that young, it's, I would say I'm relatively fluent in it and it's one of those things where people, when they say, oh, it'll stifle my creativity if I learn too much about music. That's one of those things, that I really think that ends up being an easy cop-out. Sort of, because it's, because it says, no, that's too hard, I'm not going to bother to do it, and I don't need it, But it has, I know for me, with pieces I compose, it's actually huge for me to be thinking of chord progressions and keys that songs are in. For example, I have a song that is really simply, now that I think about a strumming like this, it sounds like a Pat Benatar song or something. But it has a melody of it, I don't even think about it goes like this. All those parts kind of came out because of thinking what's going on with the chords and stuff. I've got the progression from D minor to G to D to A in the beginning. A little A minor, D to E minor. So it's like I'm following a fairly logical, to me at least, chord progression that, but you end up following the melody and don't necessarily think of it as a strumming song or something. But every song, even the ones you were playing, kind of followed harmonic progressions. To a certain extent, they just were decorated with all kinds of little melodic things, So, what do you even call it? I can't even remember my own songs anymore. I have too many of them. I don't play them very often.
That's progress, I think.
Yeah.
You forget your own tunes.
Yeah, Quicksand, that one's called. Yeah. So, anyway, are you ever playing another tune?
Sure.
For our Totally Guitars photo, or anybody that happens to stumble into this on YouTube?
Sure. I've got one. It's not very melodic, but it's I think it's especially good for anybody if you like I've developed carpal tunnel a bit, you know, from you don't use this hand long enough and then you just try to do everything with one hand. So when I was healing from this, I blew this arm out basically.
Oh right, overdid
so
it.
then I started physical therapy, and all I could do in the beginning was tap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because my arm was just like a pencil, couldn't use it for years. You had electric shock and all that therapy and stuff. And so for me, just purely out of necessity, I couldn't do the old chords I did in standard anymore. I can now. I've worked into it. Although it's hard for me to stay in one spot for very long.
Okay, yeah.
It gets tight. Tense, yeah. And so, but tapping became really easy for me. And so, there's a way to, because it doesn't matter. I'll play no matter what. I figured out a way to exercise this hand and use this minimal. I guess,
okay.
For lack of a better word. And so this piece is called Red Bell Peppy. After my daughter, when she was 3, we were making breakfast and she was ripping the toast with the butter. She was so excited to be helping Dad making breakfast. She said, and we were making omelets. It was Mother's Day. We making breakfast in bed for Mom. And she ran over to the fridge and said, "Don't forget the Red Bell Peppy." Because she couldn't say pepper. So this is called Red Bell Peppy.
Okay. Nice.
I don't practice play much anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't kind of wax my arm out a little bit.
So that was even bars with his right hand back here. You know.
That's where the partial capo idea came from.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, wait a minute. If I don't have to use this, I can then
have
free
this,
these other hands.
Yeah.
And then it worked into being able to maybe move them around sometimes and playing.
Yeah.
But probably the title track off the CD that I did back in Portland is called, or the CD is called Physical Therapy.
Oh, okay.
Because of this. It was the first thing I ever recorded. I never played out, before that. But that tune is, do I have time to play? Please.
Sure. As a matter of fact,
it's a short one.
one thing I want to do is actually just apologize for all the noise going on. We're even under airplanes here.
Yeah.
You know, where the airport is right around the corner. We got trucks here, so I hope everybody can hear that one because that one's kind of quiet, I know. But let's do one. Absolutely. One more.
This wasn't planned.
Him
and I getting together.
They're
they're setting the restaurant up for the next for lunch. But this is called Physical Therapy. It's the first track I did, and was kind of I'll just play the song. It's called Physical Therapy.
You know what? Hang on a second. Before you do that, let me move the camera in closer so we don't need our faces on anymore.
Sure.
Let's get a close up of John playing coming up.
Sure.
This one is what again?
It's called Physical Therapy.
Physical Therapy.
It's a piece I wrote before I could really do chords, or had worked up to being able to do chords.
want to thank John again for like us just running into each other here. I mean, this is too cool. We got to hear him play a few tunes, and the rest of his day is going to be spent busking on the streets of Hilo. So if anybody happens to be here, and chances are if you come anytime in the next 6 months, there's a good chance you might find him somewhere out there.
Next 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, we have, at our site, we have a channel called the Busking Channel.
No way. Wow.
But we use it for people to just share songs, you know, because we also have a channel where people will upload things that they want to be critiqued on, and particularly if they're having problems with something, I'll help them out or something. But that's like, we call that student reviews. So people upload things and then we'll, you know, kind of adjust things and everybody benefits from it.
Wow.
But a lot of people like to share songs with people and don't really, you know, necessarily want to be. They're not necessarily looking for improvement on it. Well, I'm sure they are to a certain extent. Anyway, we have the Busking Channel, but it's where a lot of people have been exposed then to music they've never heard, because somebody will say, hey, I want to play a song by this obscure songwriter. It could be Greg Brown or somebody, you know, who may be obscure in some circles and really famous in other circles. You never know. But and a lot of people weren't familiar with the term when we kind of started it. That, you know, playing out there, just playing songs for people and hoping to pick up a few coins doing it.
It's practice. It's a practice session, bro.
Yeah.
Very much, you know.
Yeah. So hopefully you won't wear your hands out.
I'm trying to get back in shape again. You know, I used to be able to play 6 or 8 hours a day, and not really stop. But it takes time to work into that. You know? Definitely an economy of motion.
Yeah.
Seems to help.
So his plan for today is to be out in front of the Kava Bar.
Kava Bar on Bayfront, yeah.
Bayfront, yeah.
Dave owns a place, and it's like got the same kind of good energy that Coconut Willy does. You know? That's why I want to go there.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, this has been a pleasure, and thanks for everything. And I hope people get a chance to come see you in Hilo sometime. So, okay. Aloha. We are now out of here.
Aloha.